I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have you all here. Just give me one moment. Happy International Education Week, and welcome to the Yes International Education Week webinar, a conversation on citizen diplomacy. We are so glad you could all join us today for an inspiring discussion on international exchange, citizen diplomacy, and how we can all serve as citizen diplomats. My name is Micah Faber. I'm the Yes Program Coordinator at Iron USA, and I'm joined today by my co-moderator, Amber Spalek, who is currently the Yes Program Intern at Iron USA, an alumna of the Nisly Y program, and a senior at George Mason University. Before we begin, let's review some of the Zoom features so that everyone can participate in today's webinar seamlessly. We encourage you to ask questions and share your comments in the chat box throughout the event. Please ensure that your chat box settings are set to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your questions and comments. You can also submit questions through the Q&A feature, and our panelists will be able to see your questions there as well. We will have a designated time for audience questions at the end of the webinar. And for those of you joining us on Facebook Live, please feel free to add your questions in the comments there as well. In addition, we have automatic live captioning available, which can be accessed by clicking the CC Live Transcript button on your Zoom toolbar. And we have ASL interpreters joining us today who will be spotlighted alongside the panelists. We are recording this webinar and it will be uploaded to the Yes YouTube page and website with subtitles a few days after the event. I'm now going to turn our attention towards the four wonderful panelists we have joining us today and ask them to introduce themselves. We are honored to be joined today by Britta Bjornlund, Director of the Youth Programs Division in the State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, Ayah Besaiso, Yes alumna from Gaza, Zana Idrizi, Yes alumna from Kosovo, and Katie Wells, Yes Abroad alumna from Oregon. Britta, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Sure, thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. As Micah said, I'm Britta Bjornlund. I'm the Director of the Youth Programs Division in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. And many of you are familiar with my office because we oversee all of the programs for young people, for youth in particular, high school programs, including YES, as well as FLEX, CBOX, Youth Ambassadors, and many, many more. What else should I say about myself? I am a lifelong learner interested in international affairs, international education. I began studying Russian when I was in high school, and that kind of opened my world to international education and other people and being a citizen diplomat. And I've had I didn't actually travel abroad until I was in high school, but since then I've had the chance to work and travel to something like 55 countries, and I love experiencing new cultures, both in my professional life, but also in my personal life. So I will pause there.
I guess it's my turn to go ahead. My name is Ayah. I'm from Gaza, Palestine. I'm a YES alumna, 2016-2017. I was placed by AYA organization in Sierra Vista, Arizona. I'm a senior and I'm currently studying at the American University in Bulgaria. I major in political science and international relations, and I also have a minor in both JMC, which is Journalism and Mass Communication, and European Studies. I personally like to call myself a citizen of the world because I've lived and traveled almost all over the world, and most importantly, I've been exposed to so many different and diverse cultures. In my current university right now, I work as a resident assistant in the residence halls. I'm also very active when it comes to extracurricular activities. I guess this is something that I managed to carry on from my YES exchange year. I'm a member and a head of a challenge organizer sports club at this university. I'm also a senator at the student government. I was also the previous president of the Political Science Club. And lastly, I'm a member of the Phi Beta Delta Honor Society at the university, which promotes international understanding and diversity. So being a citizen diplomat was something I experienced and I connected with for the first time ever during my YES exchange year. And I think until this day, I can still manage to say that I carry myself as a citizen diplomat everywhere I go. And I'm really honored to be here, and I can't wait to share with you guys some of my experiences on citizen diplomacy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I guess now it's my turn. Very happy to be here tonight with YES alumni community and YES community also in a panel full of women. My name is Zana Idrizi. I am a YES alumni from Kosovo. I was exchange student 2009-2010, one of the 7 students of the first cohort that we participated as Kosovars in a YES exchange program. Currently, I'm living and working in Istanbul, Turkey. I work for UNDP Istanbul Regional Hub as a youth engagement analyst, working with youth empowerment and youth peace building, youth-led peace building. After the YES exchange, I went back to Kosovo. As all of us, we quite active in the community. I was the co-founder of Girls Code in Kosovo, an initiative that we aim to promote and empower women in the field of technology. Yeah, over from my side. And happy International Education Week, everyone.
All right, I think that means I am last. My name is Katie Wells. To begin, I would like to apologize for having my camera off and potentially inconsistent sound. I'm currently in transit due to delayed trains and planes, but hopefully I will be joining you from my laptop in just a few more minutes. And sorry, there are going to be announcements in French in the background. And I am currently working on my master's in international education management at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. And before that, I was a language assistant in, I'm so sorry, give me just one moment, I need to listen to these announcements.
That's all right, Katie, we can hear you.
Okay. We are arriving at the train station, so there are voiceovers. I don't believe I actually mentioned, I'm a YES Abroad alumna to Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina in 2012 to 2013. And then following those programs, I completed my bachelor's in international studies, then taught abroad in France for a year, and I'm now completing my master's. And part of my master's is a practicum in Strasbourg, France, where I am currently on a train. And yeah, citizen diplomacy is something that is very important to me, and I'm very excited to talk about it with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here today and for sharing your experiences as on your exchange programs, as well as your journeys to citizen diplomats. I'm really excited to hear you all discuss throughout the event today. So I'm going to hand it over to my co-moderator, Amber, to get us started.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. So as we all know, this week is International Education Week, which is an opportunity to celebrate the benefits of international education and exchange worldwide. So this joint initiative of the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Department of Education is part of our efforts to promote programs that prepare Americans for a global environment and attract future leaders from abroad to study, learn, and exchange experiences. So let's start out by talking about the importance of International Education Week and how it relates to citizen diplomacy. So our first question is for Britta. Could you explain to us the importance of International Education Week and the greater role that it plays in citizen diplomacy?
I believe Britta just hopped off the Zoom. Maybe she was having some internet issues. So Amber, why don't we go ahead with the next question until we have Britta back?
Yeah, of course. So our next question is for Zana, Ayah, and Katie. Could you tell us what you did to promote citizen diplomacy during International Education Week on your YES or YES Abroad program?
Sure, I unmuted myself. Thanks, Amber. I mean, for international, first of all, let me just say that I was exchange student in Minnesota, placed in St. Paul, and just a year after Kosovo declared independence. So for me, being a citizen diplomat I took it quite quite close to my heart as a responsibility for me to promote and share about my new country. And I was placed in this really amazing host family. I think I was extremely lucky that very educated host family that really fostered me to be a global citizen and citizen diplomat, and inviting people from different cultures, all of their friends, to talk about Kosovo, hear about Kosovo. So I feel like I've been a citizen diplomat since day one. I was placed in St. Paul. And for International Education Week, even though it's been more than 10 years now, I recall there was a presentation done. One of my teachers asked me if I want to do a presentation both about Kosovo's culture, but also about my story and me coming to US, me coming from a divided city. And it was a presentation to all seniors at the high school, where we talked about Kosovo's tradition, Kosovo's culture. It wasn't just me giving the presentation, it was quite interactive, so people could also ask questions. So it was really fun and interesting to interact and see what they were interested for. Yeah.
I guess I can go ahead and talk about my experience on promoting citizen diplomacy in the US. During International Education Week, in my YES exchange year, I actually gave multiple presentations about the Palestinian culture and traditions in very different settings. Some were at my high school, some were at charity events, and others were at community services locations. And it was very nice because I had to present my culture in front of so many people that were very diverse and very different from each other, and turned out to be very curious at the end. I also managed to do a presentation on some of the life aspects of the Palestinian culture, and I also cooked some of the main traditional dishes in Palestine. I also did a traditional dabka dance during the presentations, and I was amazed and overwhelmed by the amount of curiosity that came out of the students and the questions that I was getting during those presentations, such as, can we get the recipes? Can you teach us how to dance for the traditional dance, and many other questions. So it was very interesting, definitely.
Okay, and I will wrap this up. So for mine, it has now been about 9 years since my International Education Week, so it's been a while. However, we did lots of different culture events, kind of like Ayah was discussing. One of the events that stuck in my head was our partnership with the madrasa, which is the local Muslim school. And so they, similar to how the States, I feel, has many private Catholic schools, it is that equivalent, but with Islam. And it was just a very cool partnership. We did a few events with them, and one of the more prominent was when us YES Abroad students, there were 5 of us, we were all from different regions in the United States, and we all did a connected presentation on our different regions. So I did mine on the Pacific Northwest, another was from the South, another was from the Southwest, the Midwest, and the East Coast. And it was just a very fun time. And there we realized that not a lot of people know all the different regions. And it was really exciting to share our homes with these people. And similar to what I said as well, they just had a lot of questions. They had seen certain things about our cultures portrayed on the media, whether through movies, shows, books. And so it was just nice to present our cultures and also discuss them with them, and also hear about their own experiences if they had been to the United States. And that was the most prominent, and it was just a very fun and informative time.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Britta, could you explain to us a little bit about the importance of International Education Week and the greater role that it plays in citizen diplomacy?
Britta, can you hear us?
I think she might be frozen.
I think you might be right. All right, so hopefully we'll get some good internet back, good internet vibes. Amber, let's move on to the next question.
Right. So thank you so much for all of your insightful responses about your work during International Education Week. Next, we would love to learn a little bit more about your own experiences as citizen diplomats. So our first question is going to be for Zana. So you were previously a youth citizen diplomat yourself through the YES program, and now you're working on youth engagement and youth-led peace building with the United Nations Development Program. So why do you think that it's important for youth specifically to see themselves as citizen diplomats?
Thanks, Amber. Now I'm thinking I would like to still believe I am a young diplomat, and I think I still am on my daily life and just doing this now. That shows. So why do I believe on youth and being citizen diplomats? So as I said, I work on Europe and Central Asia region. So we work with 18 countries and territories. As you might know, there is just so many, it's a large population of young people here in the region, which they do make an asset worth investing for having a peaceful future. And them being citizen diplomats and having mutual understanding with other young people from the nation, it's a perfect formula for a peaceful region and a stable region. And I do believe that they do see world and international issues in such a different lens, and they do have so much creativity, so much potential and capacity to transform their society now, but also define the future, being as diplomat citizens. And I already see that there are quite a lot of young people already bringing social change in their societies. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. So our next question is for Ayah. Could you tell us what your most impactful experience of sharing your culture while you were on the YES program was?
Yeah, of course. Actually, I would say that the experience was during the International Education Week, and I did not see the results on how it was impactful until maybe the end of my YES exchange year. And this was during one of the presentations I gave to a history class, where my teacher personally asked me to give a presentation about the Palestinian culture and the way of living and everything. And I remember that that day I also made the dishes, the Palestinian traditional dishes. I gave the traditional Palestinian dance. But what was really challenging was that I was giving a presentation to so many students that were not very well informed on my situation or on the situation of the country, and had some stereotypes that were formulated already of women in the Middle East, et cetera. So I was really grateful to be able to get the opportunity to speak in front of so many of them and perhaps break some of those stereotypes. And I ended up becoming very good friends with them and with most of these people in class, and I still actually communicate with them till this day. So
great, thank you so much. So Katie, you've lived abroad in both France and Lithuania. So have any of the citizen diplomacy skills that you built during your YES Abroad program been relevant to your work and life abroad?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Simple answer is the citizen diplomacy skills that I have learned in my YES Abroad year have been the most transferable skills I could have ever learned. I can use them both in my life abroad and in my life in the United States. It's been an incredible experience because those citizen diplomacy skills really taught me how to listen to people and talk to people and ask good questions and not be afraid to ask those questions, because there are definitely times where you're like, oh, I don't want to seem rude, or I don't want to seem ignorant, or I don't want to be annoying. But if you don't ask those questions, then you're not going to know about that culture. You're not going to know about those people. And so taking those skills that I learned from my year abroad is something that I have used every day since, and it's now been, as I said earlier, quite a few years. And so it's something that you can keep on building and keep on working on. They're not something that you just learn and that's as good as you're going to get. And they're just always applicable. And I use them every day.
That's wonderful to hear. So for our YES alumni, could you tell us how you've continued to serve as a citizen diplomat after returning home from your YES program?
I think I can maybe go ahead and answer this. So during my YES year, I learned a lot about many different cultures and traditions, but I felt like most importantly, I was learning about my own culture and my own traditions because I never had to really represent my country in front of anyone before. And doing it for the first time during the YES program was definitely a challenge, but it taught me a lot. So when I moved to Bulgaria and I started studying at the American University in Bulgaria, I was also expected to represent my country. And having the experience of doing it previously helped me out a lot. I was always representing Palestine during the international week that my university hosts, and I've been actually doing it 3 times in a row each year, and hopefully this year I'm going to continue with this streak. So I was invited to become part of the Honor Society on campus, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, and I was also gave many presentations and was outspoken in classes. And I think that all of these achievements that I've done so far have helped me to become a citizen diplomat during even my university years, after the YES program, and I owe all of these experience as a citizen diplomat to my YES exchange year.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences thus far about your journeys to citizen diplomacy and really alluding to the fact that citizen diplomacy doesn't just happen on your exchange years. There are lifelong opportunities to engage in citizen diplomacy. So I think that Britta is calling in. Britta, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Wonderful. So I'm going to go back a couple of questions. Britta, can you explain to us the importance of International Education Week and the greater role it plays in citizen diplomacy?
Sure. And I apologize. I don't usually have these technical issues. That horrible moment when you're so excited to talk to all these people about International Education Week and suddenly your internet is not working. But I'm glad I was able to call in. So anyway, apologies for that. Okay, so International Education Week is a joint initiative of the U.S. Department of State and the U.S. Department of Education. And the basic idea is to promote the benefits of international education and exchange programs worldwide. We really think that promoting educational exchange between nations is important, vital in actually to the United States economic competitiveness and national security, and really peace around the world. It's a strategic priority of ours. And enrolling international students from diverse backgrounds in American schools, including high schools and higher education institutions, and including American students of all backgrounds from across the country to study abroad really strengthens ties and mutual understanding between the United States and other countries. And this helps develop relationships between people and communities that are just really vital to solve global challenges, including the public health challenge before us today. So International Education Week just really gives us the chance to celebrate and champion international education, international exchange, the tens of thousands of American students who are studying and interning abroad, the tens of thousands of students who are in the United States studying, and just encourage everyone to think about these kinds of opportunities. And since citizen diplomacy is really just the simple concept that every global citizen has the opportunity and even the responsibility to engage across cultures and to share mutual understanding, International Education Week really just champions citizen diplomacy as well. And I will just add that for our youth programs division, we really dedicate this week to celebrating our exchange programs and celebrating our exchange students. And I know all of our YES students, as well as our FLEX and our CBOX participants who are living in communities across the United States, they're all encouraged to give presentations about their home cultures and their countries in the American schools that they're studying at and in the communities where they're living. And it's not only just fun, it expands Americans' understanding of the world and encourages everyone to, just become a citizen ambassador. I'll pause there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Britta. And I absolutely agree. International Education Week is such a wonderful time to celebrate our exchange programs and all of our students and alumni. Britta, we do have another question for you. We're curious to hear a little bit more about your personal journey to citizen diplomacy. So can you tell us about why you decided to go into the field of international education, and what are some moments from your academic or professional career where being a citizen diplomat is an asset?
Well, I've been asked this before, and I've reflected on this before, and it's hard to sometimes discern whether it was a conscious choice or something that I kind of fell into. But I think it's, like many things in life, is a little bit of both. I will say, as a kid growing up, I did not have the opportunity to travel abroad, but my mom was a person who was very extroverted and enthusiastic about hosting exchange students in our house. So at a very young age, I remember having a host brother from Colombia, having another host brother from Japan, standing in our living room, learning English from watching game shows like The Price is Right. And my mother was also always inviting people from different cultures and religions over to our home. I remember one time on Christmas afternoon, a van pulled up and a bunch of people came out, and they were all Jehovah's Witnesses that my mom had met at the gas station, and she wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity to experience Christmas dinner. So they joined us for dinner. Now, as a kid, I thought this was kind of quirky, a little bit strange of my mom, but I think it also exposed me to different cultures and different ways of thinking that then made me curious about the world. And then later in life, for high school, I went away to a boarding school, and it gave me the opportunity to study a new language, unusual language, which was Russian at the time, very unusual. I was able to travel to Russia with my Russian class on my spring break, my junior year, and this is going to show you all how old I am. It was the Soviet Union then. And it was my first trip abroad, except for Canada. So I will say the culture couldn't have been more different. And I think some of the other panelists have talked about this, but it was kind of the first time in my life that I realized I was American, and people were so hungry to meet an American and to learn about America. And it kind of felt like being a movie star. I sort of have never really thought of myself as American. And I realized that it was my time to kind of represent my country and to answer questions and to really be a citizen diplomat. And that was really a new experience for me. Since then, I've had the chance to, work and live in many countries and travel and to meet exchange participants here in the United States. And I think as long as you stay curious in other people and other cultures and countries, that's what makes you a citizen diplomat. We're all motivated by this sort of desire to engage with the rest of the world in a meaningful exchange. And I think it's really important and just really meaningful. And then the question of when has been a citizen diplomat been an asset? I can think of, I would say always and every day, but I can think of kind of two interesting occasions. The first one, I went abroad to work and live in Kazakhstan in 1992, I think, helping to privatize a grain elevator. And so this sort of American firm sent me to a collective farm. If you don't know what a collective farm is, you're going to have to look that up. It's sort of where everyone owns everything. And I was tasked to work with the management of the farm to privatize it, sell shares to private individuals. This was kind of a really complicated task, something that had never really been done before. And it required me to get to know these farmers, these Kazakh farmers, just as people, because here they see some 20-something young girl from the United States, and the last thing I wanted to do was go in there and tell them what to do. So I had to sort of just use people-to-people relationships to get to know them, get them to trust me, and then we all sort of worked together on this goal. And it was a really interesting opportunity for me. Much later in my career, only a few years ago, I also had the opportunity to be sort of a citizen diplomat. Well, I do every day, really, but I started a new program with Africa called the Young African Leaders Initiative that President Obama wanted to start. And he wanted to reach young Africans throughout the African continent and give them skills that will help them, further their careers and become the next generation of African leaders. For me, it was a big challenge because, as I've mentioned, I'm a Russian speaker. I've traveled a lot in Eastern Europe. I had never been to Africa, and I didn't know much about Africa. So once again, it just required having an open mind, being willing to listen, to learn about all these different cultures and communities and countries in Africa, and really to open myself up to something new. And again, it was just a wonderful experience that created a shared understanding and so many meaningful personal interactions. So I will stop there.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Britta. It's so inspiring to hear your career journey. And I think a lot of the pieces you shared are really relatable. And I'm sure our other panelists can kind of relate to those experiences abroad and realizing, kind of reflecting on your own identity for the first time in different contexts. So I'm curious to hear from our Yes and Yes Abroad alumni. When was the first time that you saw yourself as a citizen diplomat?
I can go if that's fine. I mean, as I said before, I was placed in with my host family that really just hosted so many guests who were also interested in learning about Kosovo, but also they wanted me to also meet people from different cultures and different countries as well. So I realized that, that's when it started, the whole citizen diplomacy. If I can just share one example, since I think mid my journey in the US, my host family thought would be a really good idea to get 2 girls from Serbia. And as you know, Kosovo and Serbia have been there was a conflict in 1990s. And so prior to me going to US, I never met a young person from Serbia. So my host parents thought this would be a good idea and really encouraged me to be open-minded, and we lived together, and it's we even became best friends and good friends. So that's when I really realized the power of being open-minded, face-to-face, culture sharing experience, non-judgmental. So I think it started in that house.
Oh, that's a really, really great story. Katie or Ayah, do you want to add anything to that? When was the first time that you saw yourself as a citizen diplomat?
Yeah, I can add. Here, let me turn on. Oh, I cannot start my video, but that's okay. So the first time that I felt like a citizen diplomat was actually after going home. When I was still in Bosnia, it wasn't very, I had all these experiences, but it didn't really feel like I was working as a citizen diplomat or a youth ambassador. And it wasn't until I was home that I would face all the questions about my experience in Bosnia. And all of a sudden it was like, they don't know a single Bosnian. Like they can't, they're basing it maybe off of the war from the early 90s, or basing it off of, again, what they've seen in a movie. And I had on the ground, hands-on experience. And so all of a sudden it hit me that it was my job to help them understand, but also let them understand that I am by no means an expert. I'm not a Bosnian. I was an outsider looking in. And even though I spent 10 months there, I was with a host family, I still had gaps, and I had to admit those gaps and be like, well, just in my experience, it was like this, but it could be different. And leaving it a bit more open so they could take what I said and maybe alter their perception and perspective a little bit, but understand that, again, I don't know everything, and I just had a small experience compared to the many other nationals that live in that region, and they're all so diverse. And so it wasn't until a few months after coming home that I realized that it was quote unquote my job to help people understand. But that was my experience.
Oh, thank you, Katie. And again, it's this theme that citizen diplomacy doesn't happen just on your exchange program. It's a lifelong journey, and there's so many opportunities to engage in citizen diplomacy in your home country. Britta, can you share a little bit about why it's so important that youth learn to be citizen diplomats on an international scale?
Sure. I mean, I just think young people play such an important role in promoting mutual understanding across cultures. On many continents, youth are growing, and it's really important to harness this energy, raise young voices, develop global competencies, and these are things that are crucial to our future, which is why we're so passionate at the State Department about our programs for youth. I also say, we have this era of unprecedented interconnectivity, and we're so used to now being able to share information and ideas instantaneously, especially our young people, through the internet and all these applications. And it allows us to really work together to resolve common challenges. And I think for young people, it's especially important to continue to be global citizens, to learn new foreign languages, to have cultural competencies, to keep an open mind to share information and ideas across cultures, and really just to interact with others around the world. After all, young people are the next generation of leaders, and our future is really their future. I do believe the world is only going to grow more interconnected and more global. So the role of young people in citizen diplomacy and in diplomacy and leading globally is really crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going off of that, how do you think participating in exchange programs contributes to developing citizen diplomacy among youth?
Well, I think in many ways that just being a participant in an exchange program, as some of the others have mentioned, and being a citizen diplomat are sort of one and the same thing. You can't really travel or live in another country without, to some extent, representing your own country. And again, the things that you learn about yourself and your country during that experience, and also when you return home, are really important. As I mentioned, I realized my own role as a citizen diplomat back on my exchange program in 1988, and I don't think I've ever seen the world in the same way. I do think exchange programs kind of force us to better understand our own culture while experiencing a new culture, and this sort of new worldview and understanding can only make us better people. I always tell our exchange participants when they come through DC and I have the chance to meet them that they may not know this, but by participating in the exchange program, they're actually an important component of the conduct of U.S. foreign policy. They're promoting mutual understanding through people-to-people connections, and that's what citizen diplomacy is all about. So really, every one of you have taken part in the exchange program. You're like a crucial piece of U.S. foreign policy. Because it's through the understanding and the learning and the seeing of others that our relations improve and our future improves. And so I think that's really important. And then one other thing that I wanted to mention is that we are all kind of citizen diplomats, right? And this is sort of where true diplomacy comes from, but it can also lead, as it did in my case, to a career in diplomacy. So you all should think about whether, being a more official diplomat is something you might be interested in. And this might be in a career in the Department of State, it might be in your local community, it might be in an international organization like IRN, it could be working at a university. Everyone in every sort of organization needs citizen diplomats who bring special insights and understanding, as well as languages and cultural understanding and broadened views. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about that you can't really study abroad and go on an exchange without representing your own country and culture in some way. And being a citizen diplomat kind of naturally comes with going on exchange. And we all know that, going on exchange doesn't come without its challenges and hardships. So I am curious to hear from you all, and this question is open to anyone. What are some challenges or hardships that you've experienced as a citizen diplomat?
I can go ahead and answer this question. Actually, it's interesting because while we were discussing this with Zana and Katie before, we all agreed that one of the most prominent challenges to being a citizen diplomat was actually the language, because having to communicate and express yourself clearly, and especially for me, in my case, in English, given that it's not your mother language, can be very hard. And you don't know when you're saying the right word, or if this is what you meant, or you're expressing yourself clearly and everything. So definitely language is one of the most challenging things. And one other challenge that I personally faced was being a woman from the Middle East, from Palestine, and having, to deal with all the stereotypes, and being a woman especially, it was very hard, but at some point it felt like I was proving the opposite. And when I say I'm proving the opposite, I hope you, I'm not saying that it was my job to convince other people of a different opinion, but more of adding like a personal experience to the table and giving them the chance to do their own informative decision about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Ayah, and I think a lot of people who go on exchange can relate to your story. This next question is open to anyone as well. Can you tell us about a time when you either dispelled a myth about your own country or had someone else dispel a misconception that you had about your host country?
If I can go on, I mean, it wasn't. If I can mention two things. First, it wasn't as much as myth, as much as I had to explain to people where Kosovo was. So I think that was always an issue. And I remember I would always say, oh, it's between Italy and Greece, and trying to make it a little bit more exotic. And then for younger generation, it would always be like trying to show them where Kosovo was. And I think for others that knew a little bit about 90s and Yugoslavia, it was more of me trying to explain, because there were always questions like, is it safe, but there was a conflict there. And it's not a myth, but also trying just, showing to them that, yes, it's safe, and look, I lived there and nothing happened. And so it was always this kind of conversation. It's just trying to show that, Kosovo had so much to offer, and the conflict is part of it was part of it, but there is still there are quite a lot to Kosovo to make it a great country, and talking about the youth and culture and parties and food also. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Zana. Does anyone else want to add to that? All right, Amber, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all of those thoughts. So you all had lots of opportunities to serve as citizen diplomats during your exchange programs, but now let's talk a little bit about how people can act as citizen diplomats beyond exchange programs. So our first question, what are the best ways someone can become a citizen diplomat outside of exchange programs? Britta, would you be interested in starting with this one?
Sure. Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yes. So what are the best ways that someone can become a citizen diplomat outside of exchange programs?
Well, I think in this world, there are so many opportunities. You know, there are opportunities to travel, hopefully, once the pandemic calms down a bit and we can all travel more safely. So travel is a great opportunity. Studying abroad is a really great opportunity, and we always encourage people to think about, especially international students, to think about studying in the United States. But we also have, you know, social media. So you can go on social media and have the opportunity to experience other cultures as well. I mean, I think, I think citizen diplomacy is like I think someone said this. It's a lifelong journey. It's having an open mind. It's being interested in other cultures. It's being interested in other people, and it's also, you know, being willing to cooperate and collaborate across borders and across cultures.
Great, thank you. Would any of the other panelists like to also answer this question?
Yeah, I can chime in just to sort of repeat what Britta said. Social media is such a gift in this, like with this digital age, even though there has, of course, been complications, even as we've seen in this meeting. But social media and the internet gives us so many opportunities to connect with people all over the world. And it's crazy that not that many years ago, you would, in order to connect to someone, you'd either have to physically go there or try to sign up for a pen pal program, and it would take longer, it's more difficult. But now with social media, with the there's documentaries that are created, there's so many different things where you're attending this panel, and in this panel alone we have multiple countries represented and multiple experiences, and this is just something that gets your like you're dipping your toe in the water, because not everyone necessarily has the time or money or resources in order to go abroad. And while that's such a great way to do it, it's not always an option. And so the internet can be your best friend in this instance. And there's so many ways to attend virtual conferences and panels and watching documentaries about all these different events in all these different countries, which sounds a bit overwhelming because, of course, there's a great big world out there and we all want to know all about it. But it's just knowing a little bit about everything is something that I'm still working on, but I am very curious about the world around me. And the only way to do that is by connecting in groups like these and people like you.
May I just tap in? I mean, I also, because I'm a big fan of using social media for social good, and really there is so much potential to social media right now, and we are all using it. And I think what we learned from COVID-19 and lockdown and restriction is that, you know, we being home did not mean we will stay silent. We still had means of communications. We could communicate to other people. We could see what's happening around the world. And I think for anyone who wants to be a citizen diplomat, and or, you know, they can use social media both about sharing their culture and sharing different pictures and about their stories, but also learning from others as well. There are so many groups, there are so many trends happening in social media. It's really a great opportunity. It's a great platform to use.
Can I add one more comment?
Yes, of course. Please go ahead.
I was just going to mention that I think also sort of the idea of respect is really important in citizen diplomacy. And when we're talking about actual physical travel, you know, treating others as equals is really important. I know when I've traveled, you know, even on official government delegations, that sometimes I learn, or most times, I learn the most about a country or a culture from chatting with my cab driver, or, you know, discussing, asking questions to a waiter or a waitress. So I think that's really important to just remember that we're all people, we're all equal, and we all have something interesting to share.
Yes, definitely agreed. Thank you so much for adding that on. And Ayah, did you have anything you'd want to add on to that?
I think the girls summed it all up. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So now we're going to end with this last question of the formal panel. And this question we'd love for all 4 of our panelists to share their insight on. So the question is, what advice would you give to young students or alumni who want to be citizen diplomats?
I think I can start with this one. I think I would say that you have to try to put yourself out there and be yourself at any cost. For example, my personal experience, I was very shy at first when I went on my exchange year. But once I opened up and I got used to the atmosphere, I was really enjoying myself by sharing my culture. I was proud of myself, and I was also learning about other cultures too. I learned how to adapt to the atmosphere and to the environment. So my advice to you would be to definitely put yourself out there, social network as much as you can, and talk to as many people as you can. Be outspoken, and most importantly, be open-minded to everything.
So, I mean, this is a great question. Just thinking to all the yes and flex and all the exchange students right now. I mean, this is a lifetime opportunity, and honestly, if I could go back, I would go now. I always think about it as one of the best times I had. And for anyone, you know, there, I would just say, just take advantage of any opportunity that comes your way. Be open-minded to both share information about your culture, but also learning about from others. And as Britta said, you know, respect, it means a lot. And then the most important is enjoy, you know, enjoy being the best citizen diplomat you could be, and enjoy your journey there. So, yeah.
So my advice for mainly those who are likely to be going this year, but also I think it applies for everyone, is simply to have patience, both with yourself and with other people. Whether you're speaking in another language or not, there's just so many times where miscommunications will happen, where we're all human and you're going to interpret things very differently no matter what. And so having patience both with yourself and with the people that you're speaking to, you need to take those opportunities to learn from it. And you need to be able to be like, okay, did they mean what I think they meant, or do I need to ask that follow-up question? And going to something that I said earlier, asking follow-up questions is okay. You're learning, you want to understand. And if you just kind of accept something they say and are like, wow, that's really weird, that it doesn't sound very good, but you're not going to understand the background of it unless you're asking those questions. But again, you might make a mistake, they might misunderstand something, it's bound to happen. So just be gracious, be patient, and take any opportunity to meet those different people and just work with them.
And this is Britta. I guess I'll add, I have a few thoughts. I'll go ahead and put in a plug for foreign languages. I think, especially in the United States, we don't learn enough foreign languages to be able to really interact fluently with the rest of the world. We have a lot of work to do there. And then sort of more individual kind of advice. Another thing I always say is like, life is what you make of it. So make the most of your experiences. As someone else just pointed out, you know, say yes to opportunities. Even if you're shy or uncertain, you know, put yourself out there, be open-minded, show an interest in the world. And then just lastly, I think we all have like a natural predilection to spending time or congregating with people who are similar to us in a way that's what's comfortable and that's what's natural. So if we're in an uncomfortable situation, let's say we're living abroad, we might congregate or be more inclined to spend time with other Americans if you're an American. And it's important to keep that in mind and sort of push yourself outside your comfort zone and allow yourself to really experience other people and other cultures.
That was really great advice. I know we have some prospective students in the audience, students in the audience. So I hope this was really valuable advice to hear. I know it was for me. It's a good reminder to, think about these things and think about yourself as a citizen diplomat every day. So we have concluded our prepared questions for the panel today. Thank you all so much for our panelists for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. It's been really inspiring to hear you all. We do have a couple minutes left for Q&A. So if anyone in the audience has questions for the panelists, please feel free to share them in the chat box, in the Q&A box. We welcome you to share your questions. Our first question for the Q&A section, this is a good one. What is the most rewarding aspect of being a citizen diplomat? This is open to anyone.
Yeah, I can start. One of the most rewarding for me is just talking to people. I think I've mentioned that throughout this, is meeting people from all these different backgrounds, whether that's from within the United States or internationally or wherever. It could be from my job back in the States. It could be while I'm traveling around when travel is a little bit more free, but it's meeting people and talking to people is it's a lot of fun, but you learn so many new things. And developing the skill, which again, it's like my citizen diplomacy skills are not perfect, but taking those opportunities to develop them and talk to people and hear about their experiences wherever they are, and just try to understand different people better. I've really enjoyed, because then later on in life, somebody might say something and I'm like, well, actually, that might not be true. Like, I met this person from this place and this was their experience. So when people give blanket statements to entire groups, it bothers me, because people are very unique. They're very individual. They're not all going to have the same experience just because they all are a part of one community group. And so having those experiences and challenging other people to stretch their thinking a bit and think about it from a bit of a wider scale is very rewarding for me. And just getting to know all these people and talking about them and with them and to them.
I can hop in on this one as well. I personally think that being a citizen diplomat on itself is a major achievement for your own as well. Being able to have so many understanding and knowledge about many diverse countries and cultures, and having to travel there and still being able to represent your own is something to be proud of. And at some point, you're going to realize that you're raising awareness and you're changing something in this world. And even if this change is so little and might seem cliche, it's still a change.
I can jump in. I love that, the comment about changing the world. That's really powerful. Which leads me to say that just working on these programs and seeing what all of you, Yes and Yes Abroad alumni, go on to do in your personal and professional lives, that in itself is so unbelievably rewarding. I will also say that meeting young people from around the world and being a citizen diplomat, we've talked about, there's so many benefits. What I was going to add is sort of now being a little bit older than some of you on the phone, I think, to see how some of the people that I've connected with over the years, to see how they've grown and what they've done with their lives, and sort of being able to pass that on to the next generation, and kind of seeing them mature and become more confident in themselves as citizen diplomats and in international exchange and international relations is also like very rewarding.
Absolutely. Yes, I fully agree with that. Zana, do you have any thoughts to share on that question?
Yeah, I think it was covered very well. There are just so many rewarding aspects of it. It's just learning something new all the time. It's just really rewarding in itself. Learning about all the other cultures, seeing how much is out there, how much is to see, how much is to experience. Also, I mean, for the exchange year, just like creating those meaningful relationships with people, bonding over being different, you know, it's just really, really rewarding. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. We are at the end of our time here, and I just want to thank you all again so much for participating in this panel, to all our attendees for showing up and for having a conversation with us. Before we wrap up, do any of our panelists have any parting words?
This is Britta again, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to Iron for organizing this, and to my fellow panelists. I wish I could see your faces right now. And a huge thank you also to the interpreters, who I'm sure are working very hard to make sure that everyone can access this. I did want to mention, I was like thinking about citizen diplomacy, and there is this Center for Citizen Diplomacy that has a lot of interesting resources. And I found a couple of what I thought were sort of inspiring quotes. So I'm going to read them out to you. So one is from Madeleine Albright, who, as you well know, was the U.S. Secretary of State from 1997 to 2001. And she said, in an era of bluster and bombs, citizen diplomacy is a builder of bridges. And I really love that because it just shows what sort of people-to-people relationships can do. And then the other quote that I like is from Francis Bacon, who's a philosopher and essayist. And he said, if a man be gracious and courteous to strangers, it shows he is a citizen of the world, and that his heart is no island cut off from other lands, but a continent that joins to them. And I really like that, because I think to be a citizen diplomat, there's no real training required. It just requires an open heart and an open mind.
Wow, what a great way to end our event today. Thank you so much, Britta, for sharing those quotes and for ending us on that wonderful and powerful note. Thank you all again. Happy International Education Week. We appreciate you all so much for sitting on this panel, for sharing your thoughts and experiences. It's been really inspiring. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, and thank you to everyone in the audience who came and joined us today. When we end the webinar, you will be taken to an exit ticket. So a short survey, please fill that out so that we can get some feedback on this event today. And we really always appreciate hearing from all of you. So thank you all again so much, and we will hopefully see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.